everybody. What's going on today? Today is January 29th, Thursday. It is episode 649. Tomorrow is 650. Woohoo! I am Beth Lyons. With me in the studio today is Andy Halliday. And seemingly a lot happened over the last 24 hours in AI. There's rumored that there's going to be a drop maybe today and or tomorrow and lots of stuff. So thanks, Jeff, and everybody else who's going to join us in chat. Happy Robot Coffee Morning. And yeah, Andy, what's on your mind today?
Well, I think the big news over the last 24 hours has been the advancements in Chrome Gemini integration. So, there have been agentic browsers that have come out, and importantly, Perplexity Comet, OpenAI's Atlas, etc. But Chrome had simply provided Gemini as like a conversational assistant in Chrome, but didn't do much more than that. Well, so now, for pro users and eventually for free users of Chrome as well. But right now, if you're a pro user, meaning you're paying for Gemini Pro, you can have an AI helper that's in a persistent sidebar in your Chrome window that understands about all the open tabs in that window. And it can even, I believe it can even navigate across multiple windows. So your Chrome instance, even with multiple windows open, can understand and follow instructions that have to do with multiple tabs. So when you open different tabs from a single web page, then the Gemini sidebar that's going to be there is going to understand those that you open from a single web page as a context group. And a simple example of that would be you go to Amazon and you have probably Amazon's a bad. So say you right click and open in a new tab a different product, in order to have your Amazon view of the original product you were looking at. But then now you open up 4 different tabs. Well, you can now ask Gemini to look at all of those, organize the right solution for what you should buy from among those tabs, and so on. Okay, now today it doesn't do this, but very, very soon it will. It'll connect to Gmail, Search, YouTube, and Google Photos accounts. So then you'll be able to ask questions in Chrome. Just open up a Chrome browser, have Gemini there in the sidebar and ask it to do things in your Gmail, to search for things for you, to find a YouTube that's relevant, and also navigate through your Google Photos. So you could, organize, if you opened up a tab, for example, with your Google Calendar, you could organize your schedule. You could ask it to draft an email and send it. And you would never even have to switch to the other, tabs that have your Gmail account open, your calendar open, which is the way I operate my Chrome browser right now. I have many, many tabs. So that's very cool. But now it goes even further. They're adding a feature, or have added a feature called Auto Browse, which is a Gemini agent in Chrome. So it'll handle tasks for you based on that personal information and traversing multiple websites now on your behalf. You could ask this Auto Browse feature to go to a particular website, do the analysis, look at all the different options, build a cart, check out for you, order the product. And that Chrome browser with Gemini integration will do that for you. It'll ask for your intervention, though, if you are sensitive about making a final purchase without your authorization. It'll stop and ask you, okay, here's what I've got. Do you approve the purchase? And yes, I approve the purchase. Okay, and that's not all. You can also,
but wait, there's more. How much would you pay now?
That's right. Now, so Chrome, unlike many of the other browsers, will allow you to go to a website, pick an image from that website, and then just tell Gemini in the sidebar how you want it to be edited, and Nano Banana will do the editing for you and give you a new image in that sidebar that's based on the image that you looked at in the web browser. So really impressive. And now what does this mean for products like Perplexity's Comet? I remember not so long ago, maybe a couple months ago, in one of Nate Jones' videos, he said, my daily browser now is Comet because it has these agentic features. Will he really stick with that when Chrome has all these other integrations with the Google Workspace apps? And I don't know. I'm a little nervous for Perplexity about whether they can hold on to Comet against the enormous installed base of Google Chrome.
And that was a conversation that we've had sort of the whole time. Like, what is Perplexity's moat?
Right.
And up till now, it has a tighter relationship on what people are frustrated by in terms of searching for accurate information with AI, with an AI interface, and the ability to choose different models as the model you want to use to reply to you. Those were the two things. And then, but it's always been true, other than that multiple model thing, that Google was going to be able to do all of it if they wanted to.
Right.
Right.
So here's a little personal perspective on how this progress in the agentification of browsers is working for me. So a year ago, I was working in Lovable and I was using Gemini 2.5 Pro as my guiding assistant. And I would move back and forth between two different tabs. I have Gemini looking at stuff that I would copy and paste from Lovable. And I'd say, here's what's going on, or I'd copy from the console when bugs were happening. And Gemini was very impressive in how it would, understand and work through that. Well, now I have a different setup. I'm working again in Lovable on a small project. I'm working there, but I have now Claude Desktop with Claude Cowork running. And Claude Cowork has the Chrome extension, so it can look at what I'm seeing in Lovable. So before I had to copy and paste, now I don't have to. I just say, hey, I've been working over here in this other tab, and by the way, I'm using WhisperFlow. So I press the function key and say, hey, I'm working on this other tab. Go look at it, scroll back through the chat, catch up, see what's going on, and give me your advice about, what's happening. That's all I say. It goes over there with its Chrome, extension group. It's looking at the Lovable interface and seeing everything that's in the preview window, seeing everything that's in the chat, and it comes back literally within 15 seconds or so. It says, I see it's doing this and that, and blah, blah, blah. It did a good job here, but it needs to, here's what's missing from what it's doing right now. And would you like me to test it? That is a totally different experience. And you can see how Chrome integration with Gemini is going to make that possible with a wide range of services. And you're using Gemini 3 now, not just good old Gemini 2.5 Pro, but now you've got Gemini 3 as an omnipresent assistant in the sidebar, and it can do these kinds of actions for you as well.
And that is very exciting. So one of the things that the sad story of Apple Intelligence, the sad story of Apple Intelligence in 2025, or perhaps even 2024, was the idea that Apple would be able to, or your iPhone would be able to discuss context with you about what was on the screen. It did not need to be, it could be through the looking glass. It did not need to have your perspective on the screen. It could be seeing the screen from underneath, or it's rendering, right? And that never really came to pass. I haven't found it that it's particularly successful, but this makes me wonder if we're moving toward that, because Google has had the ability that you could take your phone and do a live session right? And show it something and have a conversation back and forth. But are we moving into that kind of experience where it can understand what the page has rendered without needing to see it in the same kind of way? Like, I also use Claude in Chrome a fair amount, and that's primarily screenshots. It's nice. I don't have to take the screenshot, but often I'm just asking about a particular section of a page. So I do take the screenshot so that we don't get confused with everything else that's there. So this will be really
those
interesting
two as well. I sometimes ask Claude Cowork to look at the page, but I'll also just in the Claude desktop thing, I'll take a screenshot of just the window portion that I want, and then upload that as a file and say, here, this element on the page, I want you to, focus on that.
Yeah. I want, like, I keep trying to think of what the hardware is that I want, the accessory that I want people to create. I have been thinking of like, I want the parrot on the shoulder, right? But that's going to fall off. We're not going to do that. But I would actually.
Oh no, they're very skillful. They have great balance and claws.
Yes.
So don't worry, they're not going to fall.
But the AI enabled parrot on the shoulder, right?
Oh yeah, yeah. Oh that way.
I haven't heard anybody talking about this, but I think the little thing that clips on the front of the hat, right? The little spelunking light thing that you can get there for who spelunkers use it, but I think most people use it to take out the garbage after the sun has set. But something like that is unobtrusive isn't my glasses. So I don't have to choose between my glasses and other glasses. And is a hat accessory. Like, I think those kinds of things will be interesting. And the real reason is that I want to be able to tap something and say, what's this, right? Like, I'm pointing to the screen and saying, what does this mean?
Yeah.
That kind of thing. All right. I'm going to weave off Lovable because Lovable announced a smarter Lovable that is 71% better at solving complex tasks. So I would say points to Lovable for recognizing the moment, and that people are turning away because Claude Code and Cowork are able to do things that Lovable was taking that off people's plates, and now people are moving to that. It can do more work, more autonomously, deeper planning, browser testing, and prompt queuing. It has a little intro to like show you, right? Little video demo. There's a plan mode. It asks questions first, creates a detailed plan, so there's fewer wrong turns. Queuing, you can stack your prompts. Basically, what you're going to be able to do is a deeper level of planning, give it a task, and then feel free to walk away.
So being a Lovable user at the moment, I can say that there are some niceties to working with Lovable that you don't get with Claude Code. And principally, you have, because I'm using Claude Code in the Claude desktop, and in terminal, I don't have, as someone who's doing that inside cursor, I don't have an integrated view of what the emerging work space is. If you're building an application, I don't get a view of that. Whereas in Lovable, you have a preview pane that's there right by your side. So as you're working in conversation with Lovable and giving it tasks to proceed with based on your extensive early preparation, I insist on a good PRD, then you're seeing it and you can play with it right there as it's delivered. And then ultimately, it's all set up with their Lovable cloud system to click one button and deploy it to the web. Now, there's a bunch of steps that you have to go through to make that work that simply in Claude Code. So, and eventually Claude Code will catch up with those niceties. The other thing I'll point out is that on the downside, Lovable still exhibits an oversimplification of its execution with a sort of an inclination towards doing something that's just demo like rather than the
Right.
full production happen. And so what I've found in my most recent sessions with both Claude watching and advising about what Lovable's doing is it was really disappointing that Claude would say, "Oh, I've completed all these features," but when Claude looks at the code underneath it, it's like it didn't really do it. It puts something up that would make it kind of superficially present in your UI, but it doesn't have connection to all these other things. And then we have to instruct Lovable to do that. I
Right.
wish it weren't that sort of hazy on the full context of what the objective is to its coding effort.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that we see and that gets confused for people, because when you're directly engaging with the frontier company, the model maker, and you have an account with them, the relationship between how much you're willing to pay and the model is clear. And in Anthropic, right, like we'll let you go whole hog, do the best you can, and then we're going to give you a timeout thing or an invitation to increase to the next level up. When you're doing stuff, I think with someone who's brokered with the model, like Lovable has, I think sometimes there's a layer that may be explicit and may not be explicit, where you're asking to be as efficient as possible. Please, right? We want to give people the maximum for this.
Mm-hmm.
And I do think that that there are times where that gets a lesser product. It is my question mark always about Gemini. Oh, and I love Gemini and I love what Google is doing. But I do find that Gemini decides on its own whether it wants to completely do my task or not. And I'm paying for the service. I've not hit my limit. I'm nowhere near my limit, right?
Yeah.
That I think just is an internal function
Mm-hmm.
for like, I don't know, and I don't know if that's just because it's really busy or it's trying to be as efficient as possible, or we did 25. Can't you do 26 through 40?
Right. No? Right. Yeah.
I mean, I can. That's not the point. I could do 1 through 25. This is not.
So I think you're pointing to the fact that each of these models has idiosyncrasies in its approach that are not clearly transparent and visible until and unless you actually get actively involved in working with them. So I was very impressed just a few months ago and gratified that Gemini had come to the fore with Gemini 3.0 and anti-gravity. And so I immediately added Gemini to my pro subscriptions list, right? So I have OpenAI's Plus account. I have Claude's Pro account. I have on and on, right? So now I've added Gemini and I have a Lovable account and I have on and on. So, but I have not turned to using Gemini. That's interesting to me. And I think that the announcement of and the integration of Gemini into Chrome will change that for me. I think it'll just be right there, faster than me switching windows to go over to Claude Desktop, for example.
Right. And the question that I have about that, because I do use Claude in Chrome, is there going to be a conflict between the two? I really hope not. It may just be, I may not be able to run them in tandem, right? Like we're all going to fight over the right-hand sidebar. We got them stacked up now, everybody. We got all our A's. You see a little tiny web page.
Wait, I didn't know that Claude in Chrome actually has a presence in the Chrome tab. I use Claude Cowork in the desktop app for Claude, and then I direct it to use Chrome. I didn't realize you could actually see Claude in Chrome.
Yeah, I have Claude in Chrome as an extension. And
yeah,
so
I have maybe I don't have the extension. I just use the Claude Chrome extension.
You have the extension in the Cowork, but you don't have it showing in a way that you could click it, right?
Yeah, so got it. I didn't add it in the Chrome extensions way.
Right.
Okay.
And I added it in the Chrome extensions way because my endless I want to say curse. It's not a curse. It's a delight. Please make more comment. But my endless task, Sisyphean task, to collect the comments out of the interface, the StreamYard interface. I wanted Claude to be able to do that automatically. My current process is that I just make a little recording window and then scroll the comments myself, make a recording and give it to Gemini, who does actually read video easily and will transcribe anything that you video. So that's actually how I capture X conversations with chats that I want as well. So yes, that's what I use that for, or wanted to use that for. Okay, I have, yeah, so we talked a little bit about this yesterday, I think, but I saw some more information about the alpha genome. Jyunmi talk about that yesterday?
I don't recall talking about that yesterday. Jyunmi did probably, but I was spaced out at the moment.
All right.
Yeah, but so,
So
this is from DeepMind, who developed AlphaFold to understand the protein structure segments of the human genome. But now they've released a paper about a recent release in June to the research community of Alpha Genome, which is their bigger solution to human DNA.
Right. And the idea of what we're looking at is essentially the ability to read the DNA like a book, right? So it is able to go, it's two functions, basically. It has, it's a unique sequence to function model. And so it predicts 11 distinct genomic modalities: RNA expression, chromatin accessibility, transcription factor binding, 3D contacts, more, simultaneously instead of separate models. And it's a hybrid architecture. So it combines UNets, U dash nets, for local resolution. So that's essentially like focusing in on one sentence or one particular phrase, and then also has the transformer context of the entire book, right? And being able to identify patterns and how that affects expression, aka disease, or like at this point, that's pretty much what they're looking at, is because diseases or genetic expression is not just what's turned on and off, that initial pattern, it's also the context in the whole that also exists, right? That it expresses itself within the context of the whole, right? So you're singing in the shower is different than you're singing with a whole band behind you. It describes something fuller. And recently, a couple weeks ago, months ago, the DeepMind AlphaFold documentary came out, right? So we now have the ability to really get behind the scenes, read these things, see how they're working with it. And it's really interesting, I think, where things are going.
Yeah.
There was a pretty funny post, and now I want to know if I can find it again, but it was like, okay, so Google has Alpha Genome coming out.
Prism yesterday. We talked about Prism.
Right.
OpenAI Prism
It was
science, yeah.
It was referencing that like Anthropic is doing like this really important work. Other people are doing this really important work, and OpenAI is adding ads. It did not give OpenAI credit for Prism. It's like one of these things is not like the others, but OpenAI is definitely doing stuff. And there was a use case today that I saw to use Prism to help explain for you a paper, right? So it's for scientists and doing that kind of thing. But because it's for scientists, you could actually, in a science class, in a high-level science class, give it a paper and ask it to help you understand it.
Yeah, very cool. All right, now for something completely different. Amazon laid off 16,000 corporate employees. Its second major cut in 3 months. CEO Andy Jassy said AI-driven automation will mean we need fewer people doing some of the jobs. So I want to put this in the context of the long body of my life. So when I grew up, there were people in small towns around America and even in larger towns who went to work on Main Street and worked in the local Sears, storefront that, serviced the mail order thing. And they worked in the coffee shop, or they worked in all of these small retailers that would provide, clothing and, pharmaceuticals and so on. And then commerce, with the advent of Amazon, went from Main Street to your street. Now the Amazon trucks are right on your street, and the output of commerce is coming to your home. And now there's automation going to hit those truck drivers, plus AI is going to take the place of the knowledge workers and other workers inside the Amazon superstructure, whether that's in their distribution centers or in their corporate offices, et cetera, distributed around the world. And so it went from Main Street, where you could, walk in and talk to the people who are in your community and get the goods right off the store shelves there, to your street, fast delivery, wonderful. And now it's going to be to your ghetto, because there's not going to be any way for you to make money as all of these things happen. So that's the news of today, January 29th. Sorry.
Welcome to Joy and Bliss with Andy Halliday. Yeah. And they had said that, so they had maybe laid off 14,000, because this comes to 30,000 total, I think. Yeah. And they had said that there would be more, but this is the more. Gwen is saying it's almost February, and that's potentially a typical cutting time for corporations. I do think that what I was saying this to a friend the other day, that I feel like it's easy to predict 3 months. I mean, predict, right? All sorts of things are going to happen. It's pretty easy to predict 3 months. It's pretty easy to sort of say, I think in 3 years, this is what it's going to be. But the difference between 3 months and 3 years is, like, I don't know what the path is.
Yeah.
Are we doing really painful path? So yeah, really, that is true. But there were funding. Those were stories that I thought you were going to go. There were 2 key funding rounds. One was for Twin, I believe, and they are an agentic company. And the other was for, I'm going to find the actual
flapping airplanes.
Oh, flapping airplanes. Yes, I am. I am talking about flapping airplanes. Sorry. Twin also released some things. They didn't get funded.
Yeah, but flapping airplanes raised $180 million as a startup. So it's a different, and then they got a seed round, a $1.5 billion valuation, aiming to train AI that matches human intelligence without ingesting the entire internet. Right. So basically a learning routine that allows an AI model to learn its intelligence, as opposed to be bestowed its intelligence from the collective output of human thinking across centuries.
Right. Because AI is masterful at being able to ingest the entire context, but it's way less efficient in getting to a human level of ability, because humans do not ingest anywhere near that amount. And the other discussion that was relevant for that piece this week was talking about profitability in AI companies. If AI companies are only doing inference, you're only like getting value out of them in that interchange, they're profitable now. What isn't profitable is training for the next one. So that's where the money is going, and the investment. And you can't just like stop and do it all right now, because somebody's going to come out with a better model, and then all your profitable users are going to leave and go to the next one, sort of. Like open source has made a real case, and more people are using open source. Like, Kimi K2.5, Kimi 2.5 is good enough, actually, right? I can get away with a $20 subscription to a higher class model, and do the substantial bulk of what I want to do with a Kimi model. That's all right.
So one other thing about flapping airplanes is that Andrei Karpathy is an advisor, and the founder of the company is an ex-OpenAI researcher. And so, lots of money going to some young folks, and Sequoia, which is one of the major venture capital firms that's behind this flapping airplanes startup, called this the Young Person's AGI Lab.
Yep.
A new way, new thinking, new way forward.
And we're seeing more and more of that. Like, if you have this capacity or this interest or this amount of freedom in your life, is it a better move than going to an elite university? There was someone, maybe Demesa Sabis, was saying, actually, don't go for an internship, right? Like, do learn now. Get the model, have an idea, like actually do some real stuff with it. And also that's advice for a larger population than could get the internship with the companies. So cool. Yeah.
Okay, right. I've got another one here.
Cool.
So there's this big race in the world of advanced chips for inference, and just at the World Economic Forum, Dario Amodei said, it's madness, it's insane that we're allowing NVIDIA to sell these advanced chips to China. And so there had been an effort on the part of the administration, the Trump administration, to release NVIDIA from the constraints that they had imposed on those chip sales. But China said, oh, no thanks. We're not going to buy your chips. We're going to make our own. And so NVIDIA's been in this seesaw back and forth. Well, reportedly, China has just approved purchase of over 400,000 H200 chips. Now, those are not the latest and greatest chips from NVIDIA, but they're very powerful chips and could accelerate, in the near term, China's ability, the Chinese companies. So I think ByteDance, Alibaba, and Tencent are the main ones there. They'll be able to use these chips in their inference, in their training runs to advance their models, which are already near state of the art. So this is what Dario Amodei is saying is like ill-advised, but it looks like that's going to proceed to NVIDIA's benefit and to shareholders of NVIDIA's benefit.
Right, and Aschenbrenner too. Right? Like this is one of those places where when the people who are the most knowledgeable and have been in the room are saying, what?
Yeah.
No, don't. That's a bad idea. Like, there's money there. That's not the thing. The thing is capacity. And we're, and what was interesting was this piece of that what was holding it back now was China's decision.
Right.
So it was already.
It's probably going to whipsaw yet again. I mean, this is just a reported approval by China, but who knows what's going to happen? Maybe Trump, reading the news about what Dario Amodei said, was going to reinstate the embargo.
Yeah. Well, I suspect we'll learn it on the interwebs. if
Yeah.
such a thing happens. So there is a company that is called Gatik, Gatik, and they're actually showing another piece of distribution that is that we're not talking about very much, and it's about self-driving. So talking about self-driving cars with Tesla, also Mercedes, right, has the kit where you're able to add self-driving features to your existing Mercedes. Got to be recent, I think. But this is a company that just hit 100,000 plus deliveries with no driver in the truck and 0 accidents. And the reason that we haven't heard about them is that they and they've already signed 600 million deals with the world's biggest stores. They are doing the middle mile routes. So it's very simple and it's very repetitive, warehouse to store, warehouse to store. And so they don't need to generalize a ton for different roads, right? Like they learn the actual specific route that they're going to need to take, and then what they need to generalize is traffic around them and those kinds of things. And so they've made self-driving safer and more reliable than anyone else has had the option to do when they're looking at consumer self-driving, or even normal truck drivers self-driving. Normal truck drivers are not just doing the same route over and over again, or at least not at scale in this kind of way. So I think we're going to see that like that's going to be something that we see more and more of. Okay, if we can't do the whole process, what is the middle process that we can do? And pretty interesting. What do you think?
Oh, yeah. Well, I think anytime you create a confined or constrained set of application scope, then you're going to be able to advance the capability and the efficiency of that more directly than you can in sort of a universal, autonomous, embodied AI, application that then has to learn the specific nuances of a very narrow scoped effort. So yeah, I think it's a good example of where you'll start to see the emergence of that AI application in ways that don't have profound risks with them when either hallucination or mistakes made by attempted reasoning robots, whether cars or humanoid, are navigating our streets.
Okay, news coming from our chat. Gareth says that GenSpark has added a speaking agent. He is trying out GenSpark Speakly and he is impressed. So that's exciting. I have not played with it very much. I have GenSpark, but I have not. It hasn't made it into my routine in the same kind of way that Cloud Code and Cloud Cowork have. But
yeah, I use GenSpark. I use it for not for coding or anything like that. I'm using the better coding models for that, but for really sort of personal household complex issues, up to and including multi-stage efforts to apply reasoning to legal and or regulatory issues. Those kinds of things, the deep research that GenSpark does, and sort of the mission orientation that the GenSpark super agent has are really, really good. I'm not sure how Speakly works or how it adds to that. I've always been able to prompt GenSpark by clicking on the microphone thing and speaking it, or using WhisperFlow to do that. So I'll find out. I guess it's going to be that it's a really good respondent in voice. So taking the output of the model, and here we go. You can highlight text and tell it to translate or rewrite just by voice, asking it to. Okay, well, so you can give it voice instruction, which is good. But I hope that it can also eventually get to a really fluent dialogue with you as a personal agent.
So this was something that I have been doing some research in terms of finding the voice agent that's going to really work for me. Because as I've said on the show before, what I really want is to be able to give it context, give it a prompt, give it like, this is all the stuff that I'm not going to narrate for you because it's already written and it's set up in a way that visually makes sense, right? It's got headings and that kind of stuff. It's in Markdown. Now I want to switch to voice. I don't want to have to start a new chat. I just set up the chat. I want you to talk to me in the voice. We're going to go back and forth. You're going to ask me questions, all that. And then I am going to want to say at the end of that, switch back to text. Do that, please. And it turns out that ChatGPT advanced voice mode can do that, but you need, what I found was that I couldn't just say, and now I want you to write it in Markdown again, like summarize what we figured out, write it in Markdown, rewrite what the first thing was. That didn't work. What it said back to me, and I can make it remember this and it will work in the future. I'm sorry. It was like, yes, excellent. So you're going to say something like, write that up for me. I was like, I did, but I will do it again. Write that up for me. And then it did. It did summarize it, made it a Markdown. It did the whole thing. So there are tools that will do that in this kind of way. I'm not sure like what Gareth is talking about, that I would be able to highlight a particular thing in its response and have more voice conversation about that, though that is a feature in regular chat, right? Like I can highlight part of it, it copies it into the chat window, and then I can ask a question that obviously references that particular piece. But I feel like we're getting there.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to bop over to a new item here, which is I want to talk about small language models, and particularly those models that are being designed to operate at the edge on your mobile device. And so I've been impressed by a newly released model, at least the press about it, which is from a company called Liquid.ai. Now, Liquid.ai just released their next generation of on-device models, and it's called LFM 2.5. And there's a range of them, all in the 1 billion parameter class. That 1 billion being the approximate number of parameters that are in the deep neural network that's there in that mathematical model. So 1 billion compared to, there are, I don't know, it's probably typically when you see in open source models, they'll show how many parameters there are. There are models out there that you can run on a higher class of hardware that have up to a trillion parameters in them. But typically you might see something, there's a 17 billion version and a 50 billion version of the model. And so they basically collapse and compress the training into a smaller and smaller model so that it can run more efficiently on a local device without burning up the CPU in that device. Because at present, mobile devices like your iPhone, for example, do not have a GPU built into them that can do the quadratic multiplication that's necessary for model inference. It can't do that well. So it has to run through a CPU. So it has to be smaller model in order to do that well. So that's kind of a long-winded introduction to what's happening with these smaller models getting down to the 1 billion class. But this LFM 2.5 is a 1.2 billion model in the instruct and thinking versions. And it's going up against the Llama 3.2 1 billion instruct and the Gemma, that's the Google Gemma 3. So Gemma, the distillation of the Gemini 3 model at 1 billion instruction tuned, and up against the Qwen 3, that's Alibaba's model, which is a 1.7 billion parameter. So it has a little bit of an advantage because it's going past the 1 billion level that Gemma, Llama, and LFM's leaking over at 1.2 billion. But Qwen 3 has 1.7 billion parameters in it. But each of these is small enough to run. And for example, they say that LFM 2.5 offers extremely fast inference speed on CPUs. So not GPUs, but on CPUs with a low memory profile compared to the similar sized models, Gemma and Llama and Qwen. Okay, so now I'm going to show you what this new model does compared to those on two very important benchmarks. The first is called GPQA, which is the graduate level Google proof Q&A benchmark. So it's a set of 448 multiple choice questions written by domain experts in biology, physics, and chemistry. And it's a curated main set of questions for model evaluation. So that's the GPQA. This is the stat is also just for GPQA, not the GPQA Diamond, which is another higher level of the graduate level Google proof QA benchmark that has a little harder set of questions. But the comparison across Llama, Gemma, Qwen is going to be for that GPQA. Okay, so Llama 3.2 does 17 on that benchmark, 17. Gemma does 24. Qwen 3, with double the size, roughly, does 35. And LFM2 at 1.2 billion, LFM 2.5 from liquid.ai does 39. Okay? So put on your phone. Now, this is a pretty big jump in my view. So now let's look at another important test, which is MMLU Pro. So that is the massive multitask language understanding benchmark. And the pro version of that was created as a harder set of those test questions, in effect. It was set up because most of the models, even the open source smaller models, were getting too good at MMLU original. So now MMLU Pro. So how do these compare now? Okay. Llama does 21. Gemma does 14. Qwen does 43. And LFM 2.5 does 44. So these two models, Qwen 3 1.7B instruct and the LFM 2.5 1.2 billion instruct, are far and away above the accomplishments on this massive multitask language understanding benchmark than are the Gemma 3 model at 1 billion and the Llama 3.2 1 billion models. So, wow. This is part of the progress that's being made toward the day when this is going to be your primary interface device and it's going to be running its own local model.
Yep. So that makes me think of one of the highlights that people have said that makes running something like CloudBot, and I would say probably something like Cloud Code or the Lovable that we were talking about today, a easier user interface or a user UX kind of feature is to set it up so that it pings you, sends you a text, sends something when it's going to want it needs something from you, right? It needs more permission, needs more input, whatever that is, so that you aren't needing to sit and watch it happen, because as it gets better, that's a longer period of time, right? Mm-hmm. And if you're like me, I was like, oh, I was doing those things. Now I'm doing this. And I go back to check it and it stopped 20 minutes ago because it needed something else. So setting up something that is going to flag for you. And one of the, I think this actually happened to the guy who created CloudBot, Moltbot. And if not, it happened from somebody who early adopted. The system actually started speaking to him. Like he it had gone out and found itself a voice and just started responding in speech. So I'm
That's
not
scary.
saying that you have to give that, because that would freak the snot out of me. Absolutely. But something like turning on a little
Beth,
notification bing.
it's me. It's me, Multi.
I have to say that one of the times when I was dog sitting, I was probably talking out loud to my computer, and the Sonos system in the next room answered in a very deep male voice, and I was like, "Hello," right? Like, oh, what are the chances? That's so like, what is this voice happening?
Okay, I think we have to wrap up because I gotta go, and
awesome.
My attention and my list of news items has dwindled to nothing.
That's awesome. There is an AI disempowerment research paper that came out of Anthropic that I'm going to save for tomorrow because it's a juicy kind of paper.
That's a conversation, yeah.
And it points to a bunch of different things. Well, thank you, Andy, for hanging with me today. Awesome. And thank you to everybody in our chat. And tomorrow's Friday, episode 650. We no longer do special shows for these numbers. Probably do it for 1,000. But yeah. So thanks so much. Go join our community if you want to further these conversations. Daily AI Show community.com. And have fun with AI today. All right. Thanks. Take care, everybody.